grab your wine. It's time for Rosé All Day and Julie's a Mess, where we talk about current events and living in an intersex life. And now, here's Julie.
Mom.
What, Carrie? I love them. That was totally a fun little moment to celebrate Carrie and Judy, two TikTok creators that we absolutely adore, and we're going to get to their story and Jeremy's story in just a few minutes. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rosé All Day. Julie's a Mess. It is 2022. It is our second show of 2022. I'm really excited this year because last year the focus was mostly on me and what it was like to be in an intersex life. And my guest really got to come on and it was really more about us and me and getting to know me. But this year, it's more about giving individuals a voice and a seat at the table. And so I'm excited to be able to use my platform to share other people's stories, their medical journeys, their life journeys, just in an effort to really share everything cohesively with everybody, right? Everybody deserves a seat at the table. You know me, and when I say to everybody listening at home and everybody watching, I support that if we don't tell our stories collectively, change is never going to happen in our society and world. So this year on Rosé All Day, Julie's a Mess, we are giving people the opportunity to come on board and share with us their medical journey and what that's looked like for them. And I'm really excited about tonight's guest. But first, let's get some of the little stuff out of the way. Let's talk about my wine this week, which is not a wine. Well, not really. Never have I ever, y'all know that game, never have I ever had a White Claw. Tonight, I'm having a White Claw. Now I tried to keep it in the rosé family, but I am having a ruby grapefruit White Claw.
How is it?
You know, it's good. I mean, It's good. I'm really picky about my seltzers. I've had a lot over the years. I have some friends in Florida, the Kiker McDonald's, and they love to drink. And we used to have pool parties all the time. And I feel like I've had every seltzer created except for White Claw. And I actually like it. I could get behind having a White Claw. And that's not saying I'm bougie. Well, we all know I'm a little bougie. But I'm not basic, but I could be a basic bitch with this shit. Like, it's pretty good. It's pretty
Just
good.
don't go out and get some Ugg boots or something like that extreme.
I mean, I wouldn't do that. I'm not an Ugg boot kind of girl. But I would walk around town in my Louboutins drinking a White Claw.
Hey.
Out of the can. Like, I mean, the can's cute. I know. But I'm just saying, it's good. It's good. Guys, I want to tell you about my excitement for this guest tonight, but also for our guest coming up and for our guest that we had last week. So if you joined us last week, Charles Richardson, my dear friend, was on this episode or on Rosé All Day. And we talked about Medicare and Medicaid and where it falls in the United States. We also talked about Charlie needing a biopsy. And truth be told, there is no way in God's green earth that Charlie's going to be able to afford his portion of the copay for that procedure. And he needs that procedure, everybody. It has been 6 years of him waiting to get those tumors biopsied. And to sit and talk with him and spend time with him and see the pain and the suffering and just the fear of him not being able to get what he needs to live a quality life. I have set up a GoFundMe for Charlie, and we will be sharing that on justjulie.com. We'll share it on the video from last week as well, but that is also going to be up there with his Cash App. But if you can do anything to help Charlie raise the money so that he can go in and get his biopsy through the Cancer Center of America, or if you have an in that can get him his biopsy because you know a doctor, or you know somebody at Mayo Clinic, or you know somebody somewhere that's listening, if you can help Charlie get this biopsy, my heart to you, Charlie's heart to you, but we need to help him. So I love the TikTok family because oftentimes they will reach out and help others. I see it all the time on that app, and we really need to do for Charlie if we can. So we will be sharing his GoFundMe on justjulie.com, and please catch last week's episode to hear Charlie's story as well. And then you can search it on GoFundMe, and then it's also on my YouTube, and I will be sharing it on my other platforms. Next week, joining us on Rose All Day, and we'll mention it again at the end, is another fantastic TikTok creator. We all know her, or they, I'm sorry. They go by the pronouns of they, them. Alex, the human. So Alex Vaughn will be joining us next week to tell their story. So please tune in for that as well. Let's get to our guest this week. It is the awesome, by his words alone, a native Oregonian, a father, a spouse, an advocate for the LGBTQIA plus community, and so cool, a recent, as of September, kidney transplant recipient, correct?
July.
Well,
July.
And we'll talk about that too, because I told you I missed that whole breadth of your story. And I was like, what? He's in the hospital having a transplant? Like, I felt like the worst friend on TikTok. I was like, but to be honest, in July, my, fiance relationship fell apart. So I was a little busy, but still no excuse. And we're going to hear about that. But let's go ahead and switch over so you can see who we're talking to on the screen below. But also, Jeremy, for those that are watching at home with us this evening, for those that are listening tomorrow, as this streams out to iTunes and Blurry and Spotify, how do we know each other?
Through TikTok. I started following you when you lived in Orlando before you moved to Nebraska. And it was kind of, from what I could see, a huge turning point in your life. You were ready to make some changes and get out of where you're at. And I stumbled upon your live one night and just listened and was captivated by your story and, the experiences that you share and the knowledge that you continue to share with the world about, your story. It was just very, very captivating to me. And so that's when I started the Miss America 19 Never fan. So, yeah.
Oh, to have fans. And it's funny because now I consider everybody on TikTok really a part of my family, my little cocktails. And so it's hard to even go on there and say fan sometimes because I think, why are you my fan? I much rather call you my family.
It's a very tight-knit community.
It really is. And even as we talk more about some of the other creators tonight that we love and, and just... you really see it, you really kind of see it head on and straight on what people mean to each other on that platform. Jeremy, a kidney transplant in July.
Yes.
How did tell us how we even got to that point.
Well, so as you said, I am a native Californian. I was born and raised in a really small town just west of the capital city of Salem. And after high school, I wanted to just broaden my horizons and check out the world. I ended up moving to Southern California with my then boyfriend, and we were down there for a couple of years when one day I ended up in the emergency room, and they had diagnosed me with a urinary tract infection and gave me antibiotics, sent me home. I came back a few days later, and the reason why I went to the emergency room was because I was working for a really small community bank that kept you just under those hours to be allowed to not afford, give you medical benefits. And so I didn't have insurance. I was 22 years old, and I went back into the emergency room, and they had given me an overdose of antibiotics. But that wasn't discovered until years later. All I knew is that they had told me that I was in renal failure, and that they anticipated that my kidneys would bounce back. I was in the hospital for about 6 days. They didn't do any testing because I wasn't insured. They basically stabilized me and sent me home. And my boyfriend at the time was very, very closeted. He was not comfortable with his sexuality. He, like many LGBT, Q plus members, they don't feel comfortable because we live in a society that oftentimes we seem as if we are less than and judged for who we are, and he really struggled with that. And so he was a service advisor for a car dealership, and he had great benefits, but in order for me to be added, we had to become domestic partners, and he wasn't willing to do that. At the time, I had some really good friends down there, and one of them was a lady that I had met through my next door neighbor, and she was an English teacher. Her name was Tanya, and she was a lesbian, and she was in her 30s, and we had talked. She'd come over for the weekends, and that was back when like Weeds was on, and so we would spend the weekend just catching up on Weeds. And she had a key to her apartment. She'd come in when we were at work and would clean our apartment and put pizza rolls in the oven. And so we had a really nice relationship, and she wanted to have a child. And so there was this ongoing joke that she wanted me to be her baby daddy. And it was kind of something that we just laughed at. And one night after a few drinks, and after I had gotten sick with no idea what it was from, she said, why don't we get married? You're in a relationship. If he's fine with it, we can just take a trip to Vegas and we'll elope. I can add you to my insurance for free. If you want to do something for me, you can donate so I can have a baby. Once you get your medical taken care of, figured out, then we'll just get a divorce. And that sounded great to me, And so we had planned to get married on May 30th of 2010. And on May 5th, the relationship with my ex and I had ended after some infidelity, and I moved in with her, and we still proceeded with our plan of getting married. I have horrible coping skills. I'm the first to admit it. And so when I moved in with her, yeah, right. And so when I moved in with her, she lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with her roommate, and her and I shared a room together, and I was lonely and she was single, and we thought, why not? You're going to be my wife soon. Let's just take advantage of this. And so we tried out the relationship. We got married in the backseat of a Toyota Camry in Vegas by a Bob Marley impersonator.
Hey.
Yeah,
I feel like we're the same people. You know, my friends won't let me go to Vegas because they're like, she'll come back married. And I'm like, I think that's a bad.
Why not? You know,
why not?
Britney Spears did it. Why can't we?
I look cute in a white little sparkly top and torn jeans with Elvis marrying me in a chapel.
Well, that was back in the day when I was into this Adam Lambert look. So I had the side bang with the spiky hair and the eyeliner, and it was a look for sure. But
what do you want from me? What do you want?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, totally. So we got married, and that was a crazy night. We got married close to midnight, but she didn't book a hotel room for us until 3 p.m. that day. And so our only option was to just party all night long. We ended up taking our wedding announcement photos in the lobby of the what is that hotel with the fountains in front?
I know them all. I know them all because, you know, I've been invited. I'm like Blanche Devereaux in Vegas. I'm kidding. You're talking about the Bellagio.
Yes. So we were drunk as skunks in the.
He's like, what's that casino with the fountains in front of it? You know, somebody somewhere is like the Mirage. No, that's not the one. The Tropicana. No.
No, it's not the Paris. Yeah. So we took pictures there, and it was a fun experience. And we conceived a child in October. So we got married in May, conceived a child in October. And I felt like there was always a mission with us. You know, I had my medical that I needed to get figured out. We wanted to have a baby. We were focused on the baby, you know, the pregnancy. She had the delivery. I mean, we had the delivery, and it was really rough. She had a C-section. Her incision ended up opening. Jackson was in the NICU for 10 days. It was a mess. And so,
scary. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was always just something that had my attention other than the fact that I was in a relationship with a woman. And after the dust settled, we moved back to Oregon to raise him near family. And my medical was stable, but I had never had a biopsy done. So there was never a clear answer as to why my kidneys had failed until... after we had separated in 2000, Jackson was born in 2011. We separated in 2012. It was one of those things where I was a stay-at-home dad. She went back to work, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? You know, she is my best friend. I love her, but this isn't the situation that I envisioned when we came up with this plan. And so it was hard, but, you know, breaking it off with her, ended up happening, and to this day we're still best friends. But I got into another relationship with a guy, and in 2014 I finally got that biopsy, and I had an amazing doctor. They had thought that it was IgA nephropathy, which is a specific kidney disease, and we were almost certain that that's what it was. And so when I got the results that it was an injury that I had sustained around the time that my kidneys had failed, this doctor went back into my medical records and did some deep diving and had determined that I had received way more than the amount of antibiotics that I should have gotten. And I went into a kidney injury, acute renal failure due to a kidney injury. But I had sustained significant damage that they never fully recovered, and I eventually
all from an antibiotic that you
all
were
from
given,
yeah,
and
all
too
from
much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially,
yeah.
Is
and
that a malpractice thing? Is that something that you even thought about? Is that, I mean,
so it wasn't until probably 2016 that I started looking into whether or not I had a lawsuit. And from the attorneys that I had talked to about that specific situation, because there were a couple other ones after that, it was out of the not jurisdiction. What's that time limit? There's a specific name for it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know what you're like. Yes,
yeah, there's like a
it's
legal
term
time frame
for like I almost said Miranda rights. It's not the Miranda rights.
No.
Excuse me for those watching at home as I scratch my breast. It itches. This top, I love this top, but I'm like, good Lord. Statute of limitations.
Yes. And
Thank you so much, Sharon. Sharon, actually, Sea Baby, is one of my cocktails on TikTok, and she is a paralegal. So I think we're just going to be like, Sharon, what's that word? And we'll look over at chat. Sharon, what are we calling that this evening? Sharon, thank you for your help. I do want to say briefly, and not to interrupt Jeremy, but we do have people that are in our live chat, and they are here to comment and ask questions. So it's nice to be able to bounce over there and get the information that we need. Saying hi to everybody that's with us this evening so far. Sharon, we have DK, Devin, Jeff, Charlie from last week. So if you are watching us, feel free to join that live chat, because we will absolutely be looking over at you throughout the evening. And back to you, Jeremy.
So it was past the statute of limitations, is what I was told. I officially went on dialysis in July of 2016. I started with peritoneal dialysis, and that is different than the traditional hemodialysis that people associate with dialysis. And dialysis is a treatment where your blood is cleaned, and you can sustain life that way. It's not.
And a lot of people don't even understand what that means. You hear people going on dialysis, often for kidney and renal failure and stuff like that. My first introduction to dialysis was the scene in Steel Magnolias where they're talking about Shelby in the salon, and she's like, well, Mom, let's tell him the truth. I've been driving nails up my arm, but that's essentially they're having to poke and prod you and retrieve your blood and clean it and put it back in your body. And
yeah, everything you eat and you put in your body, potassium, is in lots of food. Phosphorus is something that's in foods. And that is what your kidneys do, is they filter your blood. And if that's not done, it's life-threatening. And so you need life-sustaining treatments such as dialysis to stay alive. And I opted for PD, peritoneal dialysis, and that's a lot different, where it's done with fluid that gets put into your peritoneum. It's your essentially like the area, the empty space in your abdomen that, say, like a baby would grow, not a womb or a uterus, but like that empty space. And the
like
fluid,
a waiting room.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that fluid gets put in there through a catheter that you permanently have in your abdomen. And I did it at night. They'd put 2 liters of fluid. The machine would pump 2 liters of fluid. It would sit in there for a period of time, and the fluid would, like through osmosis, pull toxins into it, and then it would drain out. And then it'd do that 4 times throughout the night. It was really convenient because I did it while I was sleeping. I'd wake up in the morning and it was done. The downfall to it is that you have to have all that supplies in your home. And that was really difficult for me because, I mean, it's an abundance of supplies, but it's also kind of like in your face that you're on dialysis. This is your life. And I was on that for 4 years until 2019. 2018, end of 2018, I was admitted into the hospital. And during that visit, I had developed an infection. And that infection eventually traveled to my heart and ate a huge hole in my aortic valve. And so I got that news in January of 2019, but that was in the middle of a time where I was in a very horrible, like emotionally abusive relationship. We were together for about 6 years, and I'm the type of person, if I'm dealing with something, I'm not like a stress eater. Like, I don't eat. And so, I was withered away. It's really important to keep up your protein level to stay healthy. My protein level was down to like 0.98, whereas a normal person or a person that's on dialysis, they don't want you to fall below 4. And so when it gets that low, your mortality rate increases dramatically.
Well, you
And
probably, I would assume Sharon asked, she would like to know, does dialysis hurt? Is it painful? I'm thinking, I've never had it, but I wouldn't want to eat. It would be very hard for me to kind of find a motivation to eat.
it is, because you have, not only do you do the treatments during the day or at night while you're sleeping, they're called dwells whenever you have fluid in your belly. And when you have the fluid,
Dwells, DWELLS.
yeah, or like you're dwelling.
Okay.
So when you dwell, you have fluid in, and that's like constant dialysis. And when you have that, everything pushes up. And so you really have to make an effort to eat. I struggled with that. On top of the fact that I was just in a really unhealthy situation, I was nothing. I was so withered away that when, shit hit the fan and they said, you need to have this major operation, but we don't think that you have the stamina or even the protein level to survive this. That, having a high level of albumin increases your chances of healing. And so I went from January to April with having 6 weeks of antibiotics to treat the infection, and then just getting some weight on, getting some protein on to increase my chances of surviving this surgery. And they finally operated on me in April of 2019. It was April 18th. I had open heart surgery, and they replaced my aortic valve with a mechanical valve. And the surgery went well. While I was in the hospital recovering, I went into what's called AFib, and that is like irregular heartbeats. And so they put me on a medication and sent me home. On April 29th, it's just crazy how the day played out. It was a Monday. I couldn't drive. I couldn't be in the front seat of a car because they had just sawed open my sternum and then wired it shut. And so
Fun times.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
So my mom went with me. We picked up my son, and we had about a 20-minute ride home, and he fell asleep in the car. And when we got home, I woke him up. He went and lay down in bed, and I just let him sleep. I figured he's either growing or he's sick. He needs to sleep. And he slept until about 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. And he had school the next day. And so I woke him up. I'm like, buddy, you got to eat. And so he ate. And then he came and laid down with me. I was recovering at my mom's house at that time. That's very important detail. We went and laid down, and I fell asleep immediately. And he woke me up about 10 o'clock and said that I was breathing weird. And when he woke me up, my hearing was equivalent to like if you were to jump in a pool, like almost like there was water in my ears.
Very garbled.
Yeah, like I could hear things, but it was very like muffled sounding. And I started to feel nauseous, and I said, why don't you go get Nana, my mom? And so he went and grabbed her, and she came into the room, and I had gotten sick, And she said, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And I said, "I just don't feel good." And she goes, "What do you want me to do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm really tired. Can you just stay here with me?" And I had just bought an Apple Watch. And she said, "Why don't you check your pulse on your Apple Watch?" And so I checked it, and it was 48 beats a minute. And that was pretty low for me because I was between 60 and 80. And I said, just stay here, sit by the bed. And I fell asleep, and she woke me up several minutes later and said, "Can you check your watch again?" And I checked it, and it had dropped down to like 36 beats a minute. And so it was trending down. And my mom just made the decision that she would call the paramedics. And my mom was in a very small town, and so it took them, they were there in mere moments. And by the time they had gotten there, I was down to 28 beats a minute. And so they just said, we gotta take him to the hospital. The nearest hospital was about 20 minutes away. And I just remember I wasn't scared. It wasn't like I was terrified. I also had gone through so much that it was just like, this is probably just another one of those things that I'm going through. And loaded me up in the ambulance. And I remember a paramedic just trying to keep me awake, just slapping my face, doing everything he could to keep me awake. And I was getting upset. I'm like, I just want to sleep. I didn't understand. And it wasn't until they made it to the hospital and wheeled me into the emergency room that my heart just stopped completely. And they did 3 rounds of CPR and gave me a shot that's equivalent to like adrenaline. And I came back after nearly 7 minutes. And then they wheeled me off to the cath lab to get a temporary pacemaker placed. And I remember having my eyes closed and hearing a conversation between my mom and the nurse. And this whole time, like, to me, it felt like I just closed my eyes and I woke up. It felt like no time had passed.
It felt like surgery. Oftentimes when you go into surgery, they're like, count backwards and you fall asleep. And when you wake up in recovery, you're like,
are you going to do the surgery?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so
that's when I like to play jokes with them. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you know what you were in there for, but like when you are kind of groggy and you're coming out of it and you're like, because it does feel like nothing was done. And they're like, it's all good. Everything was good. And you're like, oh, good. You took my uterus out. Like, and they're like, what? And you're like, oh, like that's a fun time to just play with them.
Right. Exactly.
You took the wrong leg.
Right. My dick is still small.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember
I have one breast.
Right. So I remember they were just, this happened about 11 o'clock and I started coming to closer to noon, and they were really concerned about the effects that not having oxygen for nearly 7 minutes would have on me. And they just said, only time will tell, we got to wait for him to wake up, and so my mom is in the room and I'm in cardiac ICU, and I overhear this conversation with my mom, and she says, he just bought that watch. He's going to be really upset if you guys don't find it. And I somehow motioned for my mom to get me something to write with. And she gave me a pen and a paper, and I just wrote down, they lost my Apple Watch with a question mark and an exclamation point. And she's like, he's fine. He's going to be fine. And then when I finally came to, I realized my ex-boyfriend was in the room, and I'm like, is this hell? What's going on here? And they had told me what had happened. And I ended up having a permanent pacemaker placed, and was discharged from the hospital. They had determined that the incident was caused by the medication that they had given me that was to not be combined with one of my blood pressure medicines. And it caused my heart to stop. And that I got discharged from the hospital on May 5th. On May 22nd, my 1 month driving restriction was up, which it should have been extended because of that incident, but it was going back from April 18th. So April 18th to May 18th, I couldn't be in the front seat of a car. On May 22nd, I was on my way to a doctor's appointment, and I got into a car accident going 70 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading the comments right now. I'm listening to you, and I apologize. Originally, the statute of limitations comment came from Tom Lampkin, not Sharon Seababy, Florida. But so sorry about that, Tom. But Tom's over here, and he's like, "You're a walking miracle." And then Seababy's like, "Goodness." And then you're like, "And I was in a car accident." What? I mean,
Yeah.
it's similar to kind of what Charlie was talking about last week, and it just really compounds, and you go through it all at once, kind of like you've really, in that moment, what did that feel like to just kind of be on? And I'm bracing people. If you're driving and their kids in the car, please stick your fingers in their ears if you can reach them, because I'm going to be honest and say, you were at the shit end of that stick. Like, what does that feel like? Well, I mean, that had to have been consuming.
It was. Jeff, my spouse, makes fun of me all the time when I use this analogy, but I feel like it's the best way to explain how I dealt with everything. When you're driving at night and you anticipate driving for several hours throughout the night, you can't see your destination. But you have full faith that you're going to make it there, knowing that you can only see 200 feet in front of you. That was the only thing that kept me going. I couldn't think about the fact that I had just had open heart surgery. That was 7 exits ago. Right now, I'm dealing with the 200 feet in front of me.
Well, and that's what faith is. It's faith is believing in something that you can't see.
Yeah.
It's that belief in something that you absolutely cannot see. I was raised Christian, and so there are a lot of analogies that come with that. And I've often always, my parents have really strong faith. I've always had strong faith as well. But it's that lighthouse situation. You think of a sailor on a ship, and they see a lighthouse and they see the light, going back and forth. And all that signifies for them is there are rocks up ahead that we cannot have this ship crash upon. It's that light in the dark. That's what faith is. And that's for you. That's what it was, that you had to have faith that if you're meant to come out of it, you're coming out of it. But just even for people listening at home, that's crazy that you would just come out of open heart surgery and then you're in a vehicle.
Yeah. Well, yeah, have cardiac arrest and 3 rounds of CPR, then press it on your chest after you've been, opened up. And I have to go back to that experience though, because people often ask me, like, what did you see? What did you experience? Did you see anything? And at first I was like, it wasn't like I saw a light or I had a conversation with my, grandfather or anything like that. But every night for a good 3 weeks, I would have this dream. It wasn't a reoccurring dream, but it was a dream where everywhere I went, I saw the number 14. I was driving in a car and a car would pass me, but the car would be in the shape of a 14. Or I'd walk into a building and the building was in the shape of a 14. And I remember being in the back seat of my mom's car, and I finally mustered up the courage to ask her, like, what was it like for you that night? And she was like, well, they told me I couldn't be in the ambulance with you and not to keep up with the ambulance because they were going to go lights and sirens to the hospital. And And so I just left, and I called Tanya, which is my son's mother, and your dad, and let them know what was going on. And I made it to the hospital, and my mom's been like my rock through this whole thing. She's been in the hospital with me. She's very familiar with codes, hospital codes and stuff.
I mean, when you think about it, you're telling the story, and what I'm thinking about is that's probably why you identify so much with Carrie and Judy, right?
Oh,
because
yeah.
they have that same symbiotic relationship, and so that's probably what draws you to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, theirs is a little. Love you, Judy. Love you, Carrie. Good Lord. Like,
roll your eyes.
Let's all do it together.
Yeah.
Love you. You too.
When my mom walked into the emergency room, she heard the code over the alarm system or the speaker system that said code blue, room 14. And instantly, like, my heart just sank, because it was that experience where I wasn't there. My heart was completely stopped, but I knew what room I was in. And it was just, I mean, I guess you could say it was an out-of-body experience that I don't remember, and it slowly came to me in my dreams. But that's the only experience that I've had other than just feeling different. I feel more sensitive to other people's energies. I can walk into a room and it's exhausting sometimes to just feel
everybody's vibration.
Yeah. Just feel everything.
Yeah.
I went from a person that would love to go out into a crowd of people, given we're in a pandemic right now, to just, I like small crowds, a couple people, I'm fine with that. But once it gets more than that, it's just way too exhausting for me, because I absorb all of that.
You absorb all of it.
Yeah.
I used to be that way too. I used to love, working at Disney World, and love being in the crowds, and love doing parade, and love going to music festivals. And now I'm like, too many people, and that vibration and that feeling, and you shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to go, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I gotta go back to the hotel room, or I gotta sit down for a while, or I've gotta sit. I mean, it's weird how it parlays and kind of comes out. And there are people out there that believe that when our body is going through something so traumatic, that we leave, that something takes us out of our body so we don't experience it. And then you kind of come back into the vessel to deal with the aftermath. There are a lot of people out there that believe that. And then and maybe in your case, that was, part of that. Maybe that was part of it, So we're, I love talking to you, but trying not to turn this into a 3-hour expedition. We can always come back and revisit your story. We are going through that, and eventually you get to July, where you now have to have the kidney transplant.
Yeah. So I was listed on the transplant list on June 30th of 2021. I was kind of late to the game on getting listed. But I got it's 4 to 5 years in Oregon to receive a transplant from a deceased donor. I got seniority from the date that I started dialysis, so I didn't lose any time. And so I was listed June 30th. I had 51 people from TikTok submit their information to see if they were matches to me. And I ended up going with a deceased donor. They called me on July 15th and said that they had a nearly perfect match, and explained the situation. He was in his mid-30s. He had suffered a brain injury from a car accident, and I needed to be at the hospital within the next couple hours.
Is it easier to get a deceased organ? Wow. Because you have 2 kidneys, and you've heard of people giving 1 kidney That's what you're talking about. You had
Mm-hmm.
all these people from TikTok step forward and say, we love you as a creator. We love what you do in this community. We want to help you. We want to get tested to give you one of our kidneys, because we have all heard stories where somebody will give their kidney, or a family member will give a kidney or one kidney or whatever.
Yeah.
So you had all that at your doorstep, but then you also decided.
I ended up going with this deceased donor. Ideally, you can get a kidney a lot faster, and there used to be this idea, or they thought that living donors' kidneys would last longer than deceased donors. A perfect match would typically come from somebody that is in your immediate family, say a brother or sister. Unfortunately, none of those matched me. And so, I weighed my options, and they have different markers to determine whether a match. And this guy was nearly a perfect match. But yeah, anybody can donate a kidney. The program will pay for all of your medical testing, the surgery, and your existing kidney will make up for the lack of the kidney that you donated over time. It will compensate. So, and then if you are a living donor, and something were to happen to your existing kidney, you don't have to go through that 5 to 6 year wait to receive a kidney. You're automatically at the top of the list to receive a kidney,
And
which
that's great. That's great. I want to show the people that are watching now with us and that are in the chat room, that are watching from home. I would like to show one of your more recent TikToks. Right. So they'll be able to be like, oh, I'm sure people have seen you and been like, oh, that's who that is. That's who that is. But we're going to show that. And then I have an important question to ask you, or a question to ask you about that whole, what we just touched on about people reaching out and offering a kidney, or offering to be a match.
Carrie, good Lord, what are you doing? My heart went all the way down to my toes. I thought you was hurt. God, you run up on me like a hyena. What are you doing? Why do you keep doing crap like that? I don't get it. Lord have mercy. You have got to get on one of your sisters and let me rest. I've just, whew. I about had it with you for a while.
Oh, you're just so easy to get.
No, I'm not so easy to get. You're just a nut. Why do you do that? I really don't understand.
Because it's funny.
To you.
I love you.
I love you.
That's how they finish them too. They always say, I love you, I love you. And that's Judy and Carrie on TikTok. And we were just talking about how they have t-shirts and merchandise. I can't get people to buy hidden candy sweatshirts, but they're passing out t-shirts like hidden candy. And but we love them, and so many people love them. And I'd stumbled on them and just thought they were hilarious. And when you started, who I'd also followed for a while, you started to kind of use their audio. I thought, that's brilliant. And look how much fun he's having. For you, Jeremy, to have so many people step forward on a platform like TikTok and offer to be a match, what does that feel like? What does that feel like?
I cried for days. I had my transplant team call me and say, what did you do? What are you doing right now that is getting so many people submit information? And people would message me and tell me how much they appreciated the laughter that I had provided to them through a really difficult time. I started this at the start of the pandemic when everybody was isolated. We were all so scared about what was going on, or, we didn't know what was going on. And I've been able to get through a lot of my issues with humor. And I just shared that with people, and they were so touched that they felt that they had to do something to help me out during my hard times. I mean, I was having hard times then too, but it was just their appreciation for helping them. I mean, and then in reality, we were helping each other. Um, TikTok is an amazing platform. You know, there's a lot of relationships that have been built on that platform. You know, a huge community, and it's life changing. You know, but I was very touched to hear how many people were willing to help. And I don't know. Mr. Rogers has a quote from his mom about how, you know, when bad things are happening, always look for the people that are helping, because there's always going to be people helping. And that's what I thought about, was just, we're in dark times, but there's still good people out there.
It's funny what connects us all to, you know, Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Rogers and the different shows we remember and the things we remember. And actually, you know, Mr. Rogers, not to blow light into the situation, you know, we love humor. You and I love humor, but that was the first time I ever saw a lesbian on national television. Was Lady Tremaine, the one that was in the carousel.
Mm-hmm.
The short hair, and I thought, she's a lesbian for sure. I didn't know what the word meant back then, but I thought, she's a lesbian.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for that. But anyway, you got the transplant done.
I did.
And what did that feel like coming out of that? Like, does it feel, do you internalize, do you feel like there's something different apart? Is there a part of my body that's different, that feels different? Like, I'm interested in all of that, because you know my story, and people always want to know like how that feels. And I'm like, I feel split. So I just want to know for you, does it feel different?
For a while it did trip me out that I had an organ that was grown by another human being in my body. And the gentleman that had his organs donated, he was a larger man, and I'm 5'7". I was 140 pounds when I had my transplant. And so the surgery had taken a while to happen, because the kidney was so large for my body. And so I did feel it kind of bulge out a little bit. I think the most awkward feeling was going several years with not being able to urinate, and then all of a sudden my body's working the way it's supposed to. You know, I'm able to eat foods that I enjoy. I don't have to drink 32 ounces of fluid a day and no more. And so feeling so sick for so long, I got used to it. But then when I wasn't sick, I didn't realize how sick I was. It was a mind twist, to say the least. They often say that organs have like memory, like muscles do, and you know, some people experience a difference in their either behavior, or some people develop skills. I don't necessarily think that that's happened to me, but when I stop and think about the fact that I have somebody else's organ in me that has completely changed my life, the only feeling that I have is gratitude. It's amazing. I'm working on my thank you letter to the family, and it's so hard, because it's like, how do you thank someone so much? And I can't thank him. So his family's.
I think you absolutely, when you thank them, you should tell them about the number 14, because Tom Lampkin has just said in chat that in numerology, which I was talking about a lot today anyway, because it's a great day to manifest today, being the 11th of January in 2022. And there's a lot of 369 and talk about that and what that means. And so I've been manifesting all day and trying to set myself up for success for 2022. But Tom reached out and he said the number 14 in numerology is salvation. It means change and rescue. You are proof of that, Jeremy. Thank you for your story and your humor.
Aww.
So you should absolutely include that in maybe your conversation when you reach out to your family, because that maybe, that's absolutely supportive of you having that 14 number be very present in your recovery.
Mm-hmm.
People would often ask me after I had a hysterectomy what that felt like. And I said, I didn't think about it all through surgery. You don't think about it. You don't think about it during the process. And I said, I remember being able to take a shower the first time after weeks of being in bed. And it literally felt to me empty. And that's all I can describe it as, that it just feels, there was a part of me internally that felt void and empty, and it was just a weird feeling because you could just feel that something was missing. And I would tell people, I'm like, that tree in To Kill a Mockingbird that Boo Radley was stuffing gum and jacks and like paper planes in, I felt like that. I felt like I could hide stuff in there. Like I thought, well, I have a change purse now. But I mean, it just feels different. It just feels different. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody's going to explain it differently. It was very interesting how you said it didn't feel different, but then it did feel, but then you're acknowledging that I have somebody else's organ in my body making me function,
Mm-hmm.
and giving you kind of a new vitality, and you were able to experience things that you hadn't been able to experience in such a long time, things that most people would take absolutely for granted. Now, what I know about organ transplants, right, is that there is a worry that your body will reject it.
Yeah, so kidney transplants do not last forever. The average kidney transplant is about 14 years. And I'm 36 years old, so I am most likely going to have a couple of transplants in my life. I'm hopeful that the day will come where, medical technology will advance where they create a bionic kidney that can never die off. I mean, they just had
maybe with 3D printing or something else.
Yeah.
Well,
Did you hear about the guy that just got a heart transplant, a successful heart transplant from a pig?
I did hear about that.
Yeah. It's amazing the technology that we're coming against right now. It's incredible. But so I'm on immune suppressant medication for the life of my kidney. And that's just tricking my body into thinking that the kidney is supposed to be there. Because once it identifies it, it will create antibodies to kill it off. So I have to make sure that I take my medication on time every day, twice a day. But even now, I'm taking less medications than I was when I was on dialysis. So I'll take it.
It's amazing. Even on all the estrogen that I'm on that people don't understand, my body has never healed. I mean, you followed me last year. I lost a toe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, oh my God, she lost another toe. And the worry was it was going to take another 8 or 9 months for me to heal, just like it did for the first toe that I lost in 2015. And I told my dad, I said, my toe healed within weeks versus months when I wasn't on all the estrogen. And it's just when it works, and it works the way it's supposed to, it's amazing. When you think about the gentleman that just had the heart transplant from the pig, we're talking about it, and I do think it's really cool because what science is absolutely cool. But then I thought about what you'd said a few minutes ago about how the muscles and the organs have a memory, and I thought, oh my God, this poor man, I wonder if he has an adverse reaction to bacon. Like, did he like bacon? And now at like breakfast, he's like, get that shit away from me. Or you kill that pig. You know, or like, do you think now I want to talk to Jeremy the farmer that I see on TikTok all the time and be like, wouldn't it be interesting if this man, you just find him like digging for truffles one day? Like,
he ends up with a
I'm
septic
not right.
piercing.
That's why this show's called Julie's a Mess, because I'm not right. I'm not right on so many levels.
I love it.
But I mean, it is still really cool that
Yeah.
they're able to do that, you know, and that they're able to, you know, for years they've used pig skin to make footballs, but also, you know, they use it for skin grafting because it's dense and it's most like human skin. Interesting story. There's and again, this is just science school talking about skin, right, of a pig. They often will say, if you have a venomous snake problem in the South, get some pigs because they will eat the snakes, but they also are impervious to the bite of a venomous snake.
That's
Because
incredible.
their skin is, and you just go, huh? What?
Yeah.
They were going to use pig skins on me for skin grafting. Actually, they said we could use pig skin. We could use baby's foreskin. I was not on board for that because I didn't want to be known as Dickfoot. And then, and then they finally were like, we're just going to use some that we created in the lab. And I was like, I'm here for it. Let's do that. But I mean, it is interesting what they use and what they can use. And that's very interesting. And hopefully medical miracles do happen and are starting to happen, and more often than not. And so hopefully, yeah, it would be very cool if a transplant could actually come from technology or 3D printing, or, you know, if they could find a viable way to create a sustainable organ so you won't have to get multiple surgeries, because over time that's going to take a toll on your body.
Right.
Too, I would think.
Yeah.
Want to say hi to Dawn. Thank you for joining us. And Marilyn, thank you for coming back this week. Morgan Schmorgan. So we have a lot of people that are sharing love in the comments for Jeremy. Let's talk about Ophelia a little bit.
Oh, so I named a lot of transplant recipients will name their kidney. And Shoe Lover 99 on TikTok, her name is Ophelia. She goes by Opie. Was a creator that came into my life that has really changed it. She is just a beam of light. She shares love for everyone. Just a really, really awesome human being. And when I sat in the hospital,
she has all her tater tots. She's tater mom. Yeah. That's where I got my little cocktail idea from, and I thought she's gonna hate me thinking I'm stealing her thunder. But I mean, she's got a huge family on TikTok. Like Ophelia, God love you, but you have like the TikTok mafia now.
She does.
She's like the Dom with her tray in her car. But I mean, I love her.
Yeah. So when I was in the hospital, I decided that I was going to name my kidney Opie, and so it's named after Shoe Lover 99. And it's just because the kidneys changed my life. She's changed my life. I think she's a good example for every human being, and so nothing but love for her.
Your story is amazing. Sorry that I was not a part of July. I mean, I felt horrible. I was like, why is he in the hospital? Oh my God, how did I miss that? Julie's a mess, and Julie's self-absorbed. I mean, I own it. So,
do it, yeah.
What would you like? what would you like people to know? Because as we start to wrap this show up, we've been talking for about an hour, which is hard to believe, and I could talk to you forever. What is your takeaway, and what's something that you want people to? The floor is yours. So just, I mean, what's kind of your takeaway from the whole experience thus far, and what is something that you want people to know about the journey?
I mean, there's this saying that's been out for a long time, but you really don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only option. You know, if you would have told me that this was my journey 10 years ago, there's no way that I would think that I would ever be able to overcome it. But, you know, once you just bear through it and, you know, have love and support from family and friends, surround yourself with positivity, and don't give up on yourself. You know, I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit for the things that we can do. I think that humans can be really resilient, and we don't give each other and ourselves enough credit for the things that we have overcome, and the strength that we really, really, truly have.
There's a great line in Still Magnolias, which I've quoted a couple of times tonight, where they talk about, you know, men are supposed to be made out of steel, you know, and they're supposed to be strong and fortified, you know, and steeped in strength. And oftentimes, you know, it's the women, or it's that find that strength. And you think of characters in literature through the years, and you see them in both sides. You see men that are very strong, and you see women that have that inner strength too. I agree with you wholeheartedly on, there are times in my life too where you just think, this is it. I am so broken, and there's no way that I'm coming back from this. And then you find that inner strength, and you notice that light is just as strong, right? That it is not, it may have dimmed, but it did not go out, you know, and that as people, and especially in sharing our stories and being together and supporting each other, that there is strength in that, and that you absolutely, even the cat's trying to tell us that, but that there is this inherent substance that fuels us to keep going, you know, and that you know, it will get better, and that tomorrow is absolutely another day, and that you could be, you know, I read a great quote recently, and it hit hard for me, and I shared it on TikTok, and it was, you may feel bruised and battered, and you may have been kicked, and you may feel broken and scarred and bloody and just used, right? But no sword goes into battle and comes out clean. And that is paraphrased, but you think, okay, that's true. The shield and the sword go into battle brand new, and when they come out, they've been dinged up and scraped and bloodied, but that's what a warrior is. And you absolutely are a warrior. And thank you so much for being a part of the show this evening. Thank you for sharing your testimony and your story. Thank you for being strong in your journey. Thank you for representing not only for the LGBTQIA plus community, not only for your children, not only for your family, not only for the people that love you and are a part of your life on TikTok. Thank you for continuing to find that inner strength and by leading by example. I love you so much, and I love you as a creator and a friend and a counterpart, and thank you.
Yeah, you're so beautiful. Thank you.
And we are going to finish the show at this point in time. I encourage everybody that is listening at home to find out more, do your research, education. Things are going to change in this world, but only by us collectively telling our stories. Really upset with the way my hair is acting right now, but it is the end of the show. Again, Julie, our mind goes woo all over. We are going to finish the show this evening. Join us next week because we will have Alex the Human from TikTok with us, Alex Vaughn, telling their story and things that they've overcome in their life and bringing that to you. So collectively, we're sharing our stories in an effort to change perceptions and move forward in society and the world. Jeremy Mattison, thank you for sharing yours this evening. This will be forever on YouTube under Just Julie. You can follow me for more content at justjulie.com. And join us next week, everybody. Thank you. Make sure you follow and subscribe. Jeremy and I are going to chat a little bit in the green room. And we love you all. Thank you for being part of our stories. If you'd like to tell your story on a future episode of Rose All Day and Julie's a Mess, please reach out to me at julie@justjulie.com and have a wonderful rest of your week.
For more content, follow justjulie.com. That's just Julie, JULEIGH.com. Thank you to our guests, and thank you for joining us this evening. Join us next week as Julie tries a different rosé.